Twilight of the Gods, A History of the Norse Mythic World, Part 1, The Beginning of the Worlds. Close your eyes, friends, and let the northern wind carry you to a place where the stars had yet to learn their names, and time knew neither beginning nor end. Tonight, beneath the whisper of the night sky, I will tell you a story older than the gods themselves, a tale of the birth of worlds, of the void that gave rise to all, and of the tree that holds the heavens. This is a saga of Norse myths, of the twilight of the gods that awaits its hour. Get comfortable, light a candle if you wish, and listen. The Void of Ginnungagap. In the beginning, there was nothing. No earth, no sky, no sea, no light. Only a vast, cold void yawned where worlds now sprawl. It was called Ginnungagap, the great abyss, its name a sigh of forgotten wind. It was neither dark nor bright, neither alive nor dead. It simply was. And in this emptiness, where even silence felt too loud, the seeds of all existence slumbered. Ginnungagap was not alone in its eternity. To the north, in a realm of cold, lay Niflheim, a world of ice and mist. There, in its depths, 11 rivers surged from the spring Hvergelmir, their waters freezing into blocks that creaked and groaned as if mourning their solitude. To the south blazed Muspelheim, a world of fire, where flames danced endlessly, and sparks soared like stars born of chaos. The guardian of this fire was Surt, a giant with a sword that burned brighter than the sun, whose steps shook the very void. And so, in times immemorial, the ice of Niflheim and the fire of Muspelheim met in the heart of Ginnungagap. Cold waters flowed toward searing sparks, and where they touched, steam arose, soft, alive, brimming with power. From this steam, like the breath of an unknown deity, the first being emerged. His name was Ymir, the birth of Ymir and the giants. Ymir was neither god nor man. He was a primordial giant, a being whose body was so vast it could have shrouded the stars. His skin was like rock, his hair like forests, his breath like a storm. He slept in Ginnungagap, and as he slept, others were born from him. From the eye, sweat beneath his arms, sprang new giants, and from his legs came yet more beings as mighty and wild as he. Thus, Ymir became the father of all Jotuns, the giants who would later become the gods' enemies. But Ymir was not alone. Alongside him, from the steam of Ginnungagap, arose Audhumla, a great cow whose horns brushed the edge of the void. Her milk flowed in rivers, nourishing Ymir, while she licked the salty ice of Niflheim to sate her hunger. Day after day, her warm tongue melted the frost, and from it emerged a new form, Buri, the first of the gods. His eyes shone like morning light, his strength akin to the wind that breaks mountains. Buri fathered Bor, and Bor, in union with the giantess Bestla, sired 3 sons, Odin, Vili, and Ve. These 3 became the first Aesir, gods whose names would echo through the ages. Yet the world was still young, and chaos reigned. The giants multiplied, their anger and power growing, while Ymir, their progenitor, gazed upon the world with the indifference of a sleeping titan. Odin, Vili, and Ve, young and filled with fire, saw this as a threat. They could not let Ymir's chaos swallow. What could become order? And so in the shadow of Ginnungagap, the gods made a choice that would shape the fate of worlds, the slaying of Ymir and the creation of Midgard. One day, when the stars had yet to find their places, the 3 brother gods approached Ymir. Their hearts burned with resolve, but their eyes held sorrow. For to slay a progenitor, even one like Ymir, was a heavy deed. They raised weapons woven of will and light and struck the giant down. Ymir's blood gushed forth in a torrent so mighty it drowned nearly all his kin. Only a few giants survived, hiding in distant corners that would later be called Jotunheim. Ymir's body did not fade into the void. The gods, standing over his remains, resolved to craft a world from it. From Ymir's flesh they shaped the earth, soft and fertile, to be a home for mortals. From his bones rose mountains, sharp and proud, piercing the clouds. His teeth became cliffs and crags, his hair forests that whisper in the wind. His blood turned into seas and rivers, and his skull was lifted high to form the sky, studded with Muspelheim's sparks, which we call stars. But the sky could not hold itself aloft. The gods summoned 4 dwarves, Nordri, Sudri, Austri, and Io. Vestri to stand at the world's corners and bear Ymir's skull until time turns all to dust. These dwarves became the guardians of the cardinal directions, their names still carried on the wind: north, south, east, and west. Thus was born Midgard, the world of humans, encircled by a great ocean that holds the memory of Ymir's blood. But Midgard was only part of a grand design. The gods knew the worlds must be connected, and at the heart of their creation grew a tree that would become the foundation of all. The tree Yggdrasil and the 9 worlds. From a seed that fell into Ginnungagap sprouted Yggdrasil, the world tree, its roots reaching back to the dawn of time, its branches piercing eternity. Its trunk gleams like silver, its leaves whisper secrets, and its bark holds runes older than the gods themselves. Yggdrasil is the axis of existence, binding the 9 worlds that sprawl across its branches and roots. At Yggdrasil's roots lie 3 springs. The first, Hvergelmir, feeds the rivers of Niflheim, where the serpent Nidhogg gnaws at the tree's roots to weaken the world. The second, Mimir's well, holds wisdom for which Odin paid with his eye. The third, Urd's well, is the spring of fate, where the Norns weave the threads of gods' and mortals' lives. These springs nourish Yggdrasil, but also remind us that even the tree is not eternal. The 9 worlds that hang on Yggdrasil's branches are realms of gods, giants, humans, and shades. Each follows its own laws, yet all are bound by fate. Let me tell you of the chief among them, the pillars of these myths, the geography of the worlds: Asgard, Vanaheim, Jotunheim. At Yggdrasil's crown, where branches touch the stars, lies Asgard, the shining home of the Aesir gods. Its golden halls, like Valhalla and Glitnir, are bathed in light brighter than the sun. Here reigns Odin, the All-Father, whose throne Hlidskjalf lets him see all worlds. Asgard is ringed by a high wall that shields it from foes, and it is reached by Bifrost, the rainbow bridge guarded by Heimdall, the god with golden teeth. Asgard is a place of power, but also where the gods prepare for their destiny. Below Asgard, amid green plains and warm winds, stretches Vanaheim, home of the Vanir, gods of fertility and nature. Here rule Njord, god of the seas, and his children, Freyr and Freya, who bring love and harvest to the world. Vanaheim is a land of abundance, where rivers flow with honey and forests sing songs of peace. But the Vanir were not always allies of the Aesir. In ancient times, war raged between them, until peace was sealed with marriage and oaths. Far from the light, among crags and storms, lies Jotunheim, the grim realm of giants. Here dwell the Jotuns, Ymir's heirs whose strength rivals mountains and whose wrath matches tempests. Jotunheim is a place of chaos, where winds howl and rivers freeze under the gaze of its denizens. The giants despise the gods, yet their paths sometimes cross, forging alliances or betrayals. The other worlds, Alfheim of the light elves, Svartalfheim of the dark dwarves, Niflheim of shades, Helheim of the dead, Muspelheim of fire, and Midgard of humans, also hang on Yggdrasil's branches, each with its own mysteries. But all are linked by the tree that whispers of fate. Epilogue of Part 1. And so the worlds were born, my friends. From the Void of Ginnungagap, from fire and ice, from Ymir's body and the god's will. Yggdrasil grew to hold them, and the 9 worlds came alive with their stories. But this is only the beginning. Ahead lie the gods, their deeds, their flaws, and their end. Close your eyes and imagine. The stars above are Muspelheim's sparks, and the wind's whisper is Yggdrasil's voice. Sleep soundly, while the worlds await the next night to tell you of the gods who walked among them. Part 2. Gods and Beings. Once again we gather beneath the stars burning like sparks of Muspelheim to continue our journey through the worlds of Norse myths. In our last tale, we saw how the worlds were born from the Void of Ginnungagap, how Yggdrasil spread its branches, and how the gods crafted Midgard from Ymir's body. Tonight belongs to those who rule these worlds, the gods, their companions, and the beings whose names echo in the roots of the tree. Get comfortable, let the light of a candle or the stars guide you, and listen to the tales of those who wove. The fates of worlds, Odin and his quest for wisdom. In the golden halls of Asgard, where light never fades, sits Odin, the All-Father, god of wisdom, war, and poetry. His face is stern, one eye hidden by a patch, the other seeing beyond the stars. They say Odin is older than the gods themselves, his heart a storm that never calms. He is not merely the ruler of the Aesir, but a wanderer, seeking knowledge more precious than gold and stronger than any sword. Odin was not born wise. His thirst for knowledge led him down perilous paths where even gods fear to tread. Once he came to Mimir's well, nestled at Yggdrasil's roots, guarded by the giant Mimir, whose wisdom ran deeper than the seas. Mimir said, "Knowledge demands sacrifice, All-Father. What will you give?" Without hesitation, Odin plucked out his eye and cast it into the well. The waters accepted the gift, and Mimir allowed Odin to drink. From that day, Odin sees not only the worlds, but their destinies, though the price was heavy. But that was not enough. Odin yearned to know the runes, ancient symbols that hold the power of creation. He hung himself from Yggdrasil's branches, pierced by his own spear, for 9 days and nights without food or water. The wind howled, the stars fell silent, and Odin gazed into the abyss. On the 9th day, the runes revealed themselves, their voices weaving into his soul, and he returned, bearing knowledge that changed the worlds. Since then, the runes have been Odin's gift to mortals, but their power always demands a price. Odin is not alone. 2 ravens, Hugin and Munin, thought and memory, soar through the worlds, whispering news to him. 2 wolves, Geri and Freki, lie at his feet, while his ravens perch on his shoulders, their eyes seeing all. Yet Odin is a restless god. He knows of Ragnarok, the twilight of the gods, and his quest for wisdom is a race against unyielding time. Thor, protector of mankind, if Odin is Asgard's mind, Thor is its might. Thor, god of thunder, with a fiery red beard and eyes that spark like lightning, is the protector of gods and humans. His steps shake mountains, his laughter rumbles like a storm. Unlike Odin, Thor does not sit on a throne. He roams Midgard and Jotunheim, battling giants who threaten order. In Thor's hands is Mjolnir, a hammer that never misses its mark. Forged by the dwarves Brock and Sindri, this hammer is more than a weapon. Its strike summons thunder, its flight ignites lightning, and its handle, though shortened by Loki's trickery, never fails. Mjolnir is a symbol of protection, and mortals pray to Thor when storms rage over their homes, yet the hammer is also a gift of fertility, for Thor blesses fields to make them fruitful. Thor wears the belt Meginggjard, which doubles his strength, and iron gloves Jarngreipr to wield the molten Mjolnir. His chariot, drawn by the goats Tangnjoster and Tangrisnir, races across the sky, their hooves sparking fire. These goats are no ordinary beasts. Thor can slay them to feed travelers, then revive them the next morning, provided their bones remain intact. Thor is straightforward but not foolish. His anger is swift as a storm, but his heart brims with kindness. He loves Midgard and its people, and his laughter carries the warmth of a hearth. But even Thor is not eternal, and his fate is tied to the giants he crushes and the monster that lurks in the shadows. Loki, trickster, companion, and betrayer. Where Odin is wise and Thor is strong, Loki is cunning. Loki, god of deceit, is neither Aesir nor Vanir, but a Jotun by blood, yet welcomed in Asgard as Odin's brother. His face is handsome, his eyes gleam with mischief, and his tongue is sharp as a blade. Loki is the wind that shifts direction, the flame that warms or burns. He is the gods' companion, their savior and their curse. Loki is a master of shape-shifting. He can become a falcon to soar the skies, a salmon to slip through rivers, or even a mare, as once happened, giving birth to the eight-legged steed, Sleipnir, Odin's horse. His mind is inventive. When the gods face trouble, Loki weaves plans to save them. But his jests often spiral into chaos, and the gods pay for his pranks. Loki is the father of monsters. From the giantess Angerboda, he sired the wolf Fenrir, the serpent Jormungandr, and the goddess Hel. These children are the shadow that trails Loki, their fates entwined with Ragnarok. Yet Loki is not only a destroyer. He loves his children, and his heart holds room for sorrow, though he hides it behind a smile. The gods tolerate Loki because he is useful, but their trust is fragile. Each step he takes is a dance on the edge of an abyss, and no one, not even Loki himself, knows where he will fall. Freyr and Freya, gods of love and fertility. Vanaheim gifted Asgard two gods whose beauty and power are like sun and rain, Freyr. And Freya, brother and sister, are Vanir, gods of love, fertility, and magic. Their presence is the breath of spring, the scent of flowers, the whisper of fields. Freya, god of harvest, rules over sun and rain. His smile makes fields bloom, his tears bring fertility. Freyr owns the wondrous ship Skidbladnir, which folds like a cloth and always sails with a fair wind. His sword, which fights on its own, he gave up for love of the giantess Gerd, a sacrifice that left him vulnerable. Freyr is a god of peace, but his heart carries longing, for he knows that without his sword, a heavy fate awaits. Freya, goddess of love and beauty, is Asgard's radiance. Her golden hair shines, her eyes are like stars, and her necklace, Brisingamen, forged by dwarves, glows like fire on her neck. Freya is not only a goddess of passion, but also of satyr magic, which lets her see the future and alter fates. She rules Folkvangr, where she welcomes half of the fallen warriors, and her chariot drawn by cats races through the sky. Freya is strong, but her heart is heavy with grief, for she lost her husband Odd, who vanished into the shadows. Freya and Freya are the life that battles Jotunheim's cold, but even their light will not escape the twilight, the giantess Skadi, the goddess Hel, and the wise Norns. Not all of Asgard's gods were born in gold. Skadi, a giantess from Jotunheim, came to Asgard to avenge her father Thiazi, slain by the gods. Her eyes are cold as ice, her bow and skis her companions. The gods offered her peace and a husband, and Skadi chose Njord, the Vanir god of the sea, but their marriage was doomed. She loved the mountains, he the sea. Skadi retreated to her snowy halls, becoming the goddess of winter. Her arrows the blizzards. Hel, Loki's daughter, rules the underworld that bears her name. Her face is half beautiful, half dead, her heart as cold as Niflheim. Hel receives those who die outside of battle. Her halls a realm of shadows and silence. But Hel is not evil. She is just, and her judgment is inescapable. At Yggdrasil's roots sit the Norns, Urd, Verdandi, and Skuld, the three sisters of fate. They weave the threads of lives, and even gods cannot escape their will. Urd guards the past, Verdandi weaves the present, and Skuld cuts the threads of the future. Their voices are the whisper of water in Urd's well, their wisdom the weight of time, the magical artifacts of the dwarves. The world of the gods is filled with wonders crafted by the dwarves of Svartalfheim, whose hands shape the impossible. Beyond Mjolnir and Skidbladnir, they forged Gungnir, Odin's spear that never misses, and Gullinbursti, Freya's boar with golden bristles that glow in the dark. Freya's Brisingamen and Odin's ring Draupnir, which spawns 8 new rings. Each night are also their work. These artifacts are not mere objects, but threads of fate that will bind the gods to their end. Epilogue of Part 2. Here they are, the gods and beings who dwell in Yggdrasil's worlds. Odin seeking wisdom, Thor forging thunder, Loki weaving chaos, Freyr and Freya bearing life, and those who stand in the shadows, Skadi, Hel, the Norns. Their stories are storm and silence, love and betrayal. But the worlds do not stand still. In the next night, we will tell of the gods' exploits, their victories and their sacrifices. Sleep soundly, friends, and let the stars whisper dreams of gods to you. Part the Three. Deeds of the Gods. Once again we gather beneath the stars, twinkling like sparks of Muspelheim, to continue our journey along the paths of Norse myths. We've seen how the worlds were born from the Void of Ginnungagap, how Yggdrasil spread its branches, and we've met the gods who rule Asgard and Midgard. Tonight belongs to their deeds, tales of courage, cunning, and sacrifices that shook the roots of the world tree. Get comfortable, light a candle if you wish, and let the northern wind carry you to the halls of the gods. The theft of Mjolnir and Loki's cunning. In Asgard, where golden halls gleam beneath the sky, a troubling silence once fell. Thor, god of thunder, awoke to find his hammer Mjolnir, which never misses its mark, gone. Without his hammer, Thor was like a storm without lightning, mighty but helpless. His rage shook Valhalla's walls, and the gods gathered to find the thief. Odin, seated on his throne, Hlidskjalf, peered into the worlds, but even his eye could not see Mjolnir. Then Loki, the trickster with a smile sharp as a blade, stepped forward. "Trust me, brothers," he said, his voice ringing with sparks. Loki knew that without Mjolnir, Asgard was vulnerable. He asked Freya for her cloak of falcon feathers, which allowed flight across worlds. Though Freya cherished her cloak, she gave it up, for without Thor's hammer, giants could destroy everything. Loki donned the cloak, transformed into a falcon, and flew to Jotunheim, the realm of giants, where he suspected the thief hid. In Jotunheim, amid crags and storms, Loki found Thrym, king of the giants, whose eyes burned with greed. Thrym laughed, clutching Mjolnir in his hands. "The hammer is mine," he thundered, "and I'll return it only if Freya becomes my wife." Loki hid a smirk and returned to Asgard with the news. Freya, hearing of the deal, flared with anger, her necklace Brisingamen trembling with her fury. "I'll never be a Jotun's wife," she cried, and the gods agreed she could not be forced. But Loki, whose mind was like a river always finding a path, proposed a plan. "We'll trick Thrym," he said. "Thor, you'll be the bride." Thor roared, his beard bristling, but Odin backed Loki. "Without the hammer we fall," said the Allfather. And so, grudgingly, Thor donned Freya's dress, while Loki, transforming into a maidservant, accompanied him. In Jotunheim, Thrym held a feast unaware of the ruse. Thor, veiled, barely contained his anger as giants mocked the bride's strength. He devoured an entire ox and drank 3 barrels of mead. Loki, with a weaver's deftness, explained, Freya was so eager for the wedding. Thrym, blinded by greed, believed him. When he placed Mjolnir on the bride's lap to bless the union, Thor tore off the veil, seized the hammer, and crushed Thrym and his court. Thunder roared as Thor and Loki returned to Asgard, Mjolnir gleaming once more in the thunder. God's hand, the building of Asgard's walls and Svadilfari. After the war between the Aesir and Vanir, Asgard lay in ruins, its walls shattered. The gods resolved to build a new fortress to shield them from giants. But who could construct walls to withstand Jotunheim's wrath? One day, a stranger appeared, his face hidden by a hood. He called himself a master builder and offered to raise the walls in a year, but his price was steep, the sun, the moon, and Freya as his wife. The gods were outraged, but Loki, his eyes glinting like stars, whispered, "Agree, but give him only 6 months. No one can build walls that fast." The gods accepted the deal, and the builder began his work. With him was a horse, Svadilfari, whose strength was astonishing. It hauled stones no 10 giants could lift. The walls rose at a terrifying pace, and the gods grew anxious. If the builder succeeded, they would lose the sun, moon, and Freya. Thor, his anger mounting, threatened to kill Loki for his advice, but the trickster only smiled. "He'll fix this," he said. At dusk, with days left before the deadline, Loki transformed into a mare, beautiful as morning light. He galloped to Svadilfari and lured the horse into the forest, leaving the builder without his aid. Without Svadilfari, the builder failed to finish the walls, and his rage revealed the truth. He was a giant who had deceived the gods. Thor, wasting no time, raised Mjolnir and struck him down. Asgard gained its walls, and Loki later returned with a foal, the 8-legged Sleipnir, who became Odin's steed. The gods laughed at Loki, but a shadow lingered in his eyes. The apples of youth and Idun. In Asgard, the gods did not age, and their strength never waned thanks to Idun, goddess of youth, whose golden apples granted eternal life. Idun was gentle as a spring blossom, her basket of apples Asgard's treasure. But one day the gods noticed their strength fading, their hair graying, their wounds refusing to heal. Idun and her apples were gone. The culprit was Loki. Seeking. To please the giant Thiazi, he lured Idun into a forest, where the giant, transformed into an eagle, carried her to Jotunheim. Without the apples, the gods weakened, and Odin summoned Loki to answer. The trickster, seeing Thor's wrath, promised to retrieve Idun. He donned Freya's cloak again, became a falcon, and flew to Jotunheim. In Thiazi's halls, Loki found Idun, alone and frightened. He turned her into a nut, clutched her in his talons, and fled. But Thiazi, noticing the theft, became an eagle and gave chase, his wings thundering behind Loki. As Loki soared over Asgard's walls, the gods lit a pyre, and flames engulfed Thiazi. The giant fell, and Loki restored Idun. Her apples shone in her hands once more, and the gods regained their youth. But Thiazi was Skadi's father, and his death sowed seeds of vengeance, Tyr and the wolf Fenrir. Among Loki's children was the wolf Fenrir, whose strength grew daily. His eyes blazed like stars, his fangs could shatter mountains. The gods feared him but could not kill him, for shedding blood in Asgard was a sin. They resolved to bind Fenrir. The first chain, Lyding, broke like straw. The second, Dromi, could not hold his might. Then the dwarves forged Gleipnir, a chain thin as silk but strong as fate, woven from the sound of a cat's footsteps, a woman's beard, and other impossible things. Fenrir, sensing deceit, agreed to be bound only if a god placed a hand in his jaws. Only Tyr, god of war, whose courage was like steel, stepped forward. When Fenrir realized Gleipnir could not be broken, he bit off Tyr's hand. The gods chained the wolf to an island, but Tyr paid the price, and Fenrir, howling in his bonds, awaited his hour. The birth of monsters. Loki was not only Fenrir's father, but also sired other children with the giantess Angerboda. Jormungandr, the serpent who grew to encircle Midgard, was cast into the ocean by the gods, where his coils gripped the world. Hel, with a face half alive, half dead, was banished to Niflheim, where she rules the dead. These three, Fenrir, Jormungandr, and Hel, became shadows heralding Ragnarok. Loki loved them, but his love could not halt the fate the Norns wove at Yggdrasil's roots. Epilogue of Part 3. Such are the deeds of the gods, my friends. Thor reclaimed Mjolnir, Loki spun his tricks, Idun saved Asgard, and Tyr sacrificed his hand for peace. But each feat is a thread drawing the twilight closer. Fenrir howls in chains, Jormungandr circles the waters, and Hel waits in the shadows. In the next night, we will tell of mortals who walked beside the gods and the paths that lead beyond life. Sleep soundly while the stars whisper of heroes and their fates. Part 4. Mortals and Gods. Once again we gather beneath the stars, shining like sparks of Muspelheim, to continue our journey along the paths of Norse myths. We've seen the birth of worlds, met the gods and their deeds that shook Yggdrasil's roots. Tonight belongs to mortals, the people of Midgard whose fates intertwined with the gods. These are tales of heroes, runes, Valkyries, and paths that lead beyond life. Get comfortable, let the light of a candle or the stars guide you, and listen to the stories of those who dared to look gods in the eye. Sigurd and the dragon Fafnir. In Midgard, among forests and mountains where the wind sang of glory, Sigurd was born, son of Sigmund, whose blood carried echoes of the gods. Sigurd was young, but his heart burned with a thirst for great deeds. His father fell to enemies, leaving only a broken sword. Odin, the Allfather, watched Sigurd, for in his fate he saw a thread that would bind the worlds. Sigurd grew under the care of Regin, a smith and schemer whose eyes hid greed. Regin told Sigurd of Fafnir, a dragon who was once his brother but fell victim to a curse. Fafnir guarded gold, cursed by the dwarf Andvari, in a cave ringed by flames. "Slay the dragon," Regin said, "and your fame will be eternal." But Sigurd sensed deceit in his words. Odin, disguised as a wanderer, appeared to Sigurd by a river. "Reforge your father's sword," he said, his voice like thunder. Sigurd went to Regin, and the smith grudgingly forged Gram, a blade that could cleave an anvil. Sigurd tested Gram, slicing through a giant's shadow, and knew he was ready. He journeyed to Fafnir's cave, where the air trembled with heat. The dragon, whose scales gleamed like stars, slept atop a hoard of gold. His breath was poison, his eyes an abyss. Guided by Odin's counsel, Sigurd dug a pit on the path where Fafnir slithered to the river and hid. As the dragon passed overhead, Sigurd thrust Gram into his heart. Fafnir roared, his blood gushing like a river, and the cave shook. Dying, the dragon cursed Sigurd. "The gold will destroy you, as it destroyed me." Sigurd took no gold but drank the dragon's blood, and his ears opened to the voices of birds. They whispered that Regin planned betrayal. When the smith approached with a knife, Sigurd beheaded him with Gram. Odin, watching from the shadows, nodded, for Sigurd had proven his strength. But Fafnir's curse settled on his soul, and his path became a road to tragedy, the magical runes of Odin. In Midgard, mortals were not equal to gods, but Odin gifted them runes, symbols that held the power of creation. These signs, revealed to Odin on Yggdrasil's branches, could heal, protect, or destroy. But their power demanded sacrifice, and not all could wield their magic. In the village of Vanaheim lived a girl named Sigrid, whose hands wove not only threads, but fates. She dreamed of Odin's raven whispering runes to her. When a storm ravaged the village, Sigrid, guided by her dreams, carved the rune algaes on a post. The wind stilled, and the people survived. Word of her gift reached the priests who served Odin, and they summoned her to their temple. There Sigrid learned that runes were not mere symbols but the world's voices. The rune Fehu brought wealth, Ansu's unlocked wisdom, and Tiwa's granted courage, but each demanded a price. Sigrid sought the rune Iwaz, which linked life and death, to save her dying brother. The priest warned, "This rune will demand your blood." Without hesitation, Sigrid cut her palm and inscribed Iwaz on her brother's chest. He was healed, but Sigrid lost sight in one eye. Like Odin, her sacrifice did not go unnoticed. Odin appeared in her dream as an old man with a staff. "You weave fate like the Norns," he said. "But remember, runes cannot change the end." Sigrid returned to her village, and her runes became legend, but she knew each stroke drew her closer to the shadows. Valkyries and warriors fallen in battle. In Midgard's skies, where clouds rumble like hooves, the Valkyries ride, Odin's. Warrior maidens. Their armor gleams, their spears are sharp, and their eyes see souls. Valkyries choose the fallen in battle, those worthy of Valhalla. Their names are Brynhild, Gudrun, Sigurdrifa, and their voices are the song of war and fate. Indi. One battle where Midgard's clans fought over land, a youth named Eric battled with Thor's fury. His sword sang, but an arrow pierced his heart. As he fell, Brynhild descended from the heavens, her wings flashing like lightning. "You are worthy of Valhalla," she said, and Eirik, his soul still clinging to life, asked, "What awaits me there?" Brynhild spoke of Valhalla, Odin's hall, where the fallen feast, fight, and rise again to prepare for Ragnarok. But she added, "Not all go to Valhalla. Some are bound for Freya's Folkvanger, where peace reigns." Eirik, whose heart yearned for rest, begged for Folkvanger. Moved by his plea, Brynhild carried his soul to Freya, defying Odin's will. For this, Odin punished her, but Eirik found peace among Vanaheim's fields. Valkyries are not only warriors, they are a bridge between mortals and gods, their choices shaping destinies. But even they are not free from the Norns who weave their threads. Valhalla and Folkvanger, two paths after death. Death in Midgard is not an end, but a road. Those who fall in battle, sword in hand, may enter Valhalla, Odin's hall in Asgard. There, beneath a golden roof, the fallen warriors, the Einherjar, feast with Odin. Their tables grown with meat from the boar Saehrimnir, reborn each morning, and mead flows like a river from the goat Heidrun's udder. By day the Einherjar fight, honing their skill. By night their wounds heal. But Valhalla is no paradise. It is a place of preparation for Ragnarök, where warriors will form Odin's army against Fenrir and Jormungandr, Folkvanger, Freyas. Hall in Vanaheim is another path. Here peace prevails, fields bloom, and rivers sing. Freya claims half the fallen, those whose hearts seek rest over war. Folkvanger mirrors Vanaheim, free of battles but rich in love and memory. Mortals who enter become part of an eternal spring, though their fate remains a mystery even to the gods. Those who die outside battle, from age, illness, or accident, go to Helheim, to the goddess Hel. Her halls are grim but just. Hel does not punish. She guards souls until time erases their names. But Helheim is a place of shadows, feared most by Midgard's mortals. Epilogue of Part 4. Such are the tales of mortals and gods, my friends. Sigurd slew the dragon, but a curse clung to his soul. Sigrid mastered runes, but paid with her sight. Valkyries bore the fallen to Valhalla and Folkvanger. But their choices were not always free. Yggdrasil's worlds are bound by the threads of mortals and gods. But these threads lead to an end. In the next night, we will tell of the Twilight, of the gods, of Ragnarök that will consume all. Sleep soundly while the stars whisper of heroes and their paths. Part V, Twilight of the Gods. Once again we gather beneath the stars, flickering like the last sparks of Muspelheim, to complete our journey along the paths of Norse myths. We've seen the birth of worlds from the Void of Ginnungagap, met the gods and their deeds, and followed mortals whose fates intertwined with Yggdrasil. Tonight is heavy, for it belongs to Ragnarok, the twilight of the gods, the end of all, and the beginning of something new. Get comfortable, light one final candle, and let the northern wind tell you of the fall and rebirth of worlds. The omens of Ragnarok. For years the Norns wove the threads of fate, their fingers trembling, for they knew the end was near. Ragnarok, the twilight of the gods, was no secret. Odin saw it in the waters of Mimir's well. Freya heard it in the whisper of the wind, and Loki felt it in his heart. But none could stop what was written. The omens came quietly, like shadows. First came Fimbulwinter, a great winter that lasted 3 years without summer. Snow buried Midgard, rivers froze, and the sun hid behind grey clouds. Humanity forgot mercy. Brothers slew brothers, children raised swords against fathers. In Jotunheim, giants prepared, their wrath growing like a storm. In Niflheim, the serpent Nidhogg gnawed Yggdrasil's roots, and the tree groaned, its leaves falling like tears. Then the stars began to fade. The wolf skull who chased the sun caught and devoured it. His brother Hati consumed the moon, its blood staining the sky. Midgard plunged into darkness. The earth quaked, Fenrir's chains snapped, and his howl echoed through the worlds. Jormungandr, the serpent encircling Midgard, rose from the ocean, his venom poisoning the waters. The ship Naglfar, made from the nails of the dead, sailed from Helheim, carrying an army of shades led by Hel. Surt, the fire giant, stepped from Muspelheim, his flaming sword scorching the sky. Heimdall, guardian of Bifrost, saw the chaos and sounded Gjallarhorn. Its blast woke the gods and Valhalla's Einherjar. Ragnarök had begun. The fall of the gods, Thor's battle with Jormungandr. On the plain of Vigrid, vast as the seas, armies assembled. The gods of Asgard, Vanir of Vanaheim, and Einherjar stood shoulder to shoulder against giants, monsters, and Hell's shades. The sky blazed, the earth cracked, and Yggdrasil trembled, its roots tearing. Thor, god of thunder, stepped forward, his eyes burning like lightning. Mjolnir gleamed in his hand, his belt Meggingjard ringing. Before him rose Jormungandr, the serpent whose maw could swallow mountains. They had fought before, but this battle was final. Thor struck with Mjolnir, shattering the serpent's scales, while Jormungandr spewed venom that burned even a god. Lightning tore the sky, waves crashed against shores, and the earth scorched beneath their feet. With the 9th blow, Mjolnir crushed Jormungandr's skull, and the serpent fell, its body, shaking Midgard. But the serpent's venom seeped into Thor. The thunder god took 9 steps, each heavier than the last, and collapsed, his beard dusted with frost. Thor, protector of Midgard, was dead, but his hammer shone amid the ruins. Odin and Fenrir. Odin, the Allfather, rode Sleipnir, the 8-legged steed with the spear Gungnir in hand. His ravens Hugin and Munin circled above, and his wolves Geri and Freki ran beside him. He knew his fate, but his eye blazed with resolve. Before him stood Fenrir, the wolf whose fangs were sharper than stars. His fur smoked, his howl drowning. Out the battle's cries. Odin hurled Gungnir, but Fenrir dodged, his jaws clamping onto Sleipnir, and the horse fell. Odin fought like a tempest, but the wolf was stronger. Fenrir swallowed Odin, and the Allfather's light faded. But the battle did not end. Vidar, Odin's son, god of silence and vengeance, stepped toward the wolf. His boots, woven from leather scraps of all ages, withstood the onslaught. Vidar tore Fenrir's jaws apart, piercing his heart. Odin was avenged, but the cost was great. Loki's final battle. Loki, the trickster whose fate was woven with chaos, chose the giant's side. He stood on Naglfar, his eyes blazing like fire, his laughter like the wind. Against him stood Heimdall, guardian of Bifrost, whose sword flashed like a rainbow. Old enemies, their hatred burned brighter than the battle. Loki shape-shifted, now a falcon, now a wolf, now flame, but Heimdall saw all. Their fight was a dance, every strike deadly. At last Loki drove a dagger into Heimdall's heart, but the guardian of Bifrost pierced the trickster with his sword. They fell together, their blood mingling on Vigrid's ground. Loki, whose life was jest and tragedy, died with a smile, but his children, Fenrir, Jormungandr, and Hel, left their mark on the world. The world consumed by fire and water. Ragnarök was not only a battle, but an end. Surt, the fire giant, raised his sword, and flames engulfed Yggdrasil. The tree's branches burned, its roots cracked, and worlds crumbled. Asgard fell, its golden halls reduced to ash. Vanaheim drowned in smoke, and Midgard choked in waters. Rising from the ocean, Jotunheim shattered, Niflheim melted, and Muspelheim consumed itself. Freyr, without his sword, fell to Surt's blow. Tyr, one-handed, fought Garm, Helheim's hound, and they slew each other. Freya, battling for Folkvanger, vanished in flames, her necklace Brisingamen melting away. Hel and her shades dissolved in the waters that swallowed Helheim. Yggdrasil, though scorched, endured, its roots holding the remnants of existence. The earth sank in fire and flood. Stars vanished, and a silence like Ginnungagap settled over the ruins. Ragnarok was complete, and gods, giants, and monsters passed into eternity, the rebirth of the world. But myths do not end with death. From ash and waters rose a new earth, green and soft as in the first days. Yggdrasil, charred but alive, sprouted new shoots. Rivers flowed, fields bloomed, and the sky cleared. A new sun, daughter of the old, shining over the world. Two humans, Lif and Liftrasir, who had sheltered in Yggdrasil's branches, stepped into the light. Their hearts were pure, their hands ready to build. They became the ancestors of a new humanity, one that would live without gods, but with their memory. The gods, too, returned, but changed. Baldur, god of light, slain by Loki's schemes, emerged from Helheim, his smile radiant as morning. His brother Hod, who unwittingly killed him, walked beside him, their feud forgotten. Vidar and Vali, Odin's sons, and Modi and Magni, Thor's sons, found Mjolnir among the grass and swore to keep the peace. New halls rose, not of gold but of light and stone, and the gods lived without fear of Ragnarök. The world was reborn, but the memory of Twilight lingered. The Norns, if they still wove, were silent, Yggdrasil whispered, but its voice was gentler. The new world belonged to humanity, and their stories were just beginning. Epilogue of Part 5. Ragnarök devoured the worlds, but from ash rose hope. Odin fell, Thor died, Loki burned, but Lif and Liftrasir, Baldur, and the new gods carry light. Yggdrasil stands, its roots guarding the past, its branches reaching for the future. Our journey is complete, but myths live in the stars, the wind, and your dreams. Sleep soundly, and let the new world whisper its stories to you. Epilogue: A New Dawn. We return beneath the stars, now shining softer like children of a new sun, to tell the final chapter of our saga of Norse myths. Ragnarök burned the worlds, Yggdrasil blazed, and the gods fell, but from the ashes rose a new earth. Tonight belongs to those who walk the green fields, where memories of the past whisper in the wind. This is a story of a new dawn, of humans and gods building a world without twilight. Get comfortable, light a candle if you wish, and let me carry you to where a new era begins. The first steps of Lif and Liftrasir. When the waters of Ragnarök, receded and Surt's fires faded. The earth sighed as if waking from a long sleep. Yggdrasil, scorched but unyielding, sprouted new shoots, its leaves greened, and its roots sang a song of life. In the shade of its branches stood two, Lif and Liftrasir, a man and a woman sheltered by the tree during the end. Their eyes saw the ashes of the old world, but their hearts burned with hope. Lif, whose hands were strong as oak roots, gazed at the horizon where a new sun, daughter of the old, rose over the sea. Liftrasir, whose voice was like the murmur of a stream, held seeds that had survived in Yggdrasil's branches. They did not know how to build a world, but their souls remembered tales of Midgard sung by skalds before the twilight. "We will begin anew," Lif said, and Liftrasir nodded, her hair gleaming in the morning light. They built a home by a river flowing from Yggdrasil's roots. Lif carved runes on stones, unaware of their power, but feeling they held memory. Liftrasir planted seeds, and fields bloomed with wheat and flowers unknown to the old world. Their children were born under a sky where stars no longer faded, each child carrying a spark of the past. Thor's courage, Odin's wisdom, Loki's cunning. But Lif and Liftrasir were not alone. In the shadows of forests and atop hills, they saw figures glowing like morning light. These were the new gods born from Ragnarok's ashes, their eyes filled with peace, not war. The return of Balder and the new gods. Balder, god of light, whose death by Loki's schemes foretold the twilight, stepped from Helheim's shadows. His hair was like sunbeams, his smile a promise of spring. Beside him walked Herd, his brother, who unwittingly slew him, but now their hearts were free of guilt. They stood on a hill where Asgard once rose, watching grass pierce the ash. Vidar, Odin's son, whose strength tore Fenrir's jaws, and Vali, born for vengeance, joined them. Their armor was dusted from battle, but their swords remained sheathed. Modi and Magni, Thor's sons, carried Mjolnir, found among the grass. The hammer no longer thundered, but its warmth gave strength. These gods did not build golden halls like their fathers. They raised homes of stone and wood, simple but sturdy, and their laughter rang like bells. Balder became the guardian of the new world. He did not rule like Odin, but taught Lif and Liftrasir's people to see beauty in each day. "The old gods fought fate," he said, "but you shape it." Vidar and Vali guarded the borders, ensuring the giants' shadows did not return. Modi and Magni taught humans to forge iron and build ships that sailed new seas. But the gods were not as before. They demanded no sacrifices, sought no wisdom in wells, and feared no end. Their strength lay in unity with humanity, and their names sounded not in hymns but in songs by the hearth. The Whisper of Yggdrasil. Yggdrasil, the world tree, stood at the heart of the new world. Its roots were no longer gnawed by Nidhogg, and its springs, Hvergelmir, Mimir's well, and Urd, flowed clearer than ever. The Norns, if they still existed, were silent, their looms stilled. But the tree whispered, its voice reaching those who knew how to listen. One day the daughter of Lif and Liftrasir, named Astrid, came to Yggdrasil. Her hair was red as Thor's, her eyes deep as Odin's. She dreamed of a raven, whispering of the old world, and sought the truth. At the tree's roots she found a stone covered in runes that glowed like stars. Astrid touched them, and a vision enveloped her. She saw Ragnarok, Surt's fire, Fenrir's howl, Odin's fall. But then she saw Lif and Liftrasir, their home, their children. She heard Balder's laughter and felt Mjolnir's warmth. Yggdrasil whispered, "The old is gone, but its sparks live in you. Create, but remember." Astrid returned to her people and shared her vision. Her words became the first song of the new world, sung by campfires, passing down the memory of the gods, a new world without gods. The new world knew no wars like the old Midgard. Lif and Liftrasir's people built villages that grew into cities. Their ships plied the seas, and their fields fed all. They did not pray to gods, but honored them in stories. Mjolnir became a symbol of labor, runes and art, and the names of Odin, Thor and Freya bedtime tales for children. Yet the past's shadows lingered. In distant mountains where snow never melted, people whispered of giants sleeping in stone. In ocean depths, fishers saw shapes like jormungandr's coils. In some dreams, Hel appeared, her face softer, but her voice still cold. The new world was free, but its roots lay in the old, and Yggdrasil preserved that bond. Astrid, who became the first Skoldis, taught people not to fear the shadows. "We are children of ash," she said, "but also children of light." Her songs carried on the wind, and even the gods sitting by their hearths smiled as they listened. One last look at the stars. Years passed, and the new world grew. Lif and Liftrasir aged. Their children became parents, their grandchildren builders. Balder and his kin rarely appeared to humans, their light blending with the sun. Yggdrasil became just a tree, great but no longer divine. Yet on clear nights when stars shone brighter, people looked skyward and felt the old gods still there. In the wind, the thunder, the whisper of waves. One day, Astrid, now grey-haired, came to Yggdrasil for the last time. She lay at its roots, and her soul joined the stars. They say Balder greeted her, and Odin somewhere in the shadows smiled. The new world lived, and its stories were just beginning. Epilogue. Thus ends our saga, my friends. The twilight of the gods has passed, and a new dawn lights the earth. Lif and Liftrasir, Astrid, and the new gods gave the world a chance, free of Ragnarok but rich with memory. Yggdrasil stands, its leaves rustling, and the stars sing of the past. Sleep soundly, and let your dreams be filled with the light of the new world. May the northern wind whisper new stories, and the night cradle you like the branches of the tree,